welcome once again to the Old Cow Report. And of course, I'm your host, Chuck Lee, and coming to you live from the beautiful downtown tire factory and hamburger stand right here, live. And of course, this is the August 25th, 1997 edition. And as usual, boy oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about tonight. And with me, as usual, over many, many years now, maybe, I don't know, 100, 250 years, something like that, it was my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred, the Truth Stafford.
Yes, howdy doody.
Glad to see you again, Fred. How you been?
Right, how about you?
Oh, pretty good. And you know, many, many people have been wondering where you've been, Fred. So where have you been?
Well, right now I've been in the Claremont nursing home where I'm taking the therapy to strengthen my leg and my arm, which were affected by a stroke.
Well, how's it going?
Well, I couldn't do that before, now I can.
Yeah, it's getting pretty good up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're back walking again now. You know,
Right.
you came down here tonight, you weren't using a walker or a wheelchair.
No, nor last night.
And you don't even need a cane.
Right.
So you're back what would you say, you're back about 80%,
More than that.
85 from before the stroke?
85, 90%.
Well, that's good, Fred. We're glad to see that you're coming along nicely, and now you're going to be moving out of there in the next week or two, right?
Yes.
Maybe in the next 5 or 6 days?
Well, I think it'll be at least a week.
Okay, well, that's good. We're glad to see that you've totally rehabilitated yourself, Fred, and like the many cards and letters we got on this program, they said you can't keep Fred down. He's been on the Old Cow Report for 20, 30, 40 years. There's no way a little stroke's going to get him down.
Yeah.
And that's what I always say, too. All right, Fred, well, as usual, you know we got a lot to talk about here on the Old Cow Report, and we invite you to call in there, and Roy Rogers-Hoff, our pyrotechnical engineer, on the other side of the screen. And of course, in all these many years now, I don't know, it's been what, Fred, 40, 45 years we've been on the air? Not one time has Roy ever shown his face live on the air. Of course, he still looks like the day we started 36 years ago. He hasn't aged one bit. And it must be those genes.
Yeah.
Okay, Fred, there's a lot of sad news in the media over the last few weeks. 5 cows die in lead contaminated pasture. And I'll tell you, we had to go to that funeral, and it was a sad affair. There was a lot of crying and mooing going on over there at that funeral. 5 cows die in lead contaminated pasture. You'd think they'd quit polluting that over there, Fred. Them poor cows got enough work to do just to produce that milk without having to worry about lead in the grass over there. Removing lead-contaminated soil from a pasture where 5 cows grazed before dying could cost thousands of dollars, the Department of Natural Resources says. Materials containing lead were incinerated on the track. I don't know, how can you incinerate lead, Fred? That doesn't sound like a very intelligent thing to do. You incinerate lead and it goes up in the air and it falls back down and you breathe it. It gets into more stuff. Well, anyway, that's the DNR for you. They're big on spending taxpayers' dollars and short on brains. Well, we'll have to shut that off because Roy handles that on the other side of the camera. All right, then another big deal, Fred, that's been going on, and of course you know about this because you haven't had a decent meal for what, about 6 weeks now, except for when we rescue you out of that place and take you to go eat. Tainted ground beef recall swells to millions of pounds, Fred. It's just about busted that Hudson meatpacking, and of course they're the major suppliers for Sam's Club and Walmart and Burger King, and so Burger King is having a special on hamburgers right now, and to get back the confidence of the consumers, because when you have a scare like this with E. coli bacteria in the food system, it scares off a lot of people and they quit buying your hamburgers, and whatever else is made with ground beef. And so now they got some confidence building to do to get back to consumers' trust.
Yes.
And you know, I shop out there at Sam's, and I bought a box of that of their hamburger patties a couple months ago, but I lucked out and got it before the E. coli bacteria scare. All right, well, Fred, before we get to the phones and get to some of what you have there saved up, we have something that we're going to donate to the upcoming Channel 11 Public Access Community Television auction that's coming up. And that auction is Saturday, November 1st, and Sunday, November 2nd. Two-day television auction. And I know they've got a really nice football jersey with Brett Favre and all the Packers that signed it from the world champion Packers, and that's going to be on the auction block. And of course, they have all kinds of nice gifts this year.
Yes.
And so the Old Cow Report thought that we would donate something to the auction too, Fred. And this is bound to be a collector's item. And you recall when you and I went down to Iowa,
Ames, Iowa,
to the Iowa caucuses. And when we were down there, we happened to talk to Dick Lugar, and he gave us this T-shirt. It says Lugar for President. Of course, Dick Lugar is a U.S. Senator from Indiana, and he ran for president there, and he was at the Iowa caucuses and gave a nice speech, but he just didn't have enough followers to win. So on one side now, this is the original Dick Lugar T-shirt that was handed out to the select few elite of the Republican Party. And then on the other side, Fred, lo and behold, we have the Cow Report T-shirt, and it's been autographed by Chuck Lee and Fred the Truth Stafford. And of course, this will bound to be an heirloom many, many years from now, Fred.
Right.
And hopefully people will hand that down and keep it in their safety deposit box. But there it is, the old Cow Report, TV talk with an attitude, hosted by Chuck Lee, Cable Channel 11, Eau Claire. Of course, you can see the two autographs, signatures on it with permanent ink. And that will be going into the auction, Fred.
Yes.
And I'm sure that will bring many, many dollars.
Yeah.
So there's only going to be one in the auction, folks. So that's November 1st and 2nd. So if you want to bid on that T-shirt, you'll have to tune in that day and put in your bid, just like everyone else, Fred. So there that is, November 1st and 2nd. And I assume...
I got another one we could donate to.
What's that now?
Another man I ran for president.
Pat Buchanan?
No. Is this
Alf Landon?
No.
All right, okay there. Okay, Fred. So that auction, I assume, will probably, I don't know what time of day it'll start, but it'll be pretty much both days, all day long. There's so many things that they have to give away. It's going to take 2 days to auction them off, Freddie boy. All right there, Fred. Well, we've had somebody waiting on the line there for quite a while, but what's your first short article you got there, your first paragraph?
One, and this is the May 26th issue of the New American magazine, published in Wisconsin and Appleton, and I haven't seen this in any of the papers or any of the things that I read. In the case of Carroll Howe, the government was laboring for nearly 2 years. It had an informant inside Elohim City. This was proved false when she surfaced, and the ATF was forced to admit that she had been operated within the Elohim Committee for about before and after bombing.
Now you're talking about the Oklahoma City bombing that killed close to 200 people.
And she informed them of the place going to be bombed 2 weeks at a time.
2 weeks
so
before.
They knew it, and they didn't do anything to stop it.
Well, I guess, Fred, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, The federal government quickly pushed through this Tim McVeigh thing and kept everybody's eyes on him. And of course, he was pretty much what you call the trigger man. He got caught right away, and he's going to swing from the gallows or whatever way they do the death sentence out there in Oklahoma or Colorado or wherever he was sentenced to death. But several people now have came forward, and they've demanded a grand jury hearing within Oklahoma itself.
Yes.
See, there's two governments in there's 51 governments in this country, Fred. There's the United States government, which is the federal government, and then there's 50 state governments.
Yes.
So you can be tried in the federal government like McVeigh was. And of course, when you're in the federal jurisdiction, they can either lay out the whole scenario and tell you exactly what happened, or they can cover up part of it and just blame it all on a guy like Tim McVeigh and the other guy that they got in jail. Well, the grand jury there, the officials in Oklahoma said, well, we're not going to buy that from the federal government. This federal government has lied too many times since Clinton has came into office, and especially with that fruitcake Janet Reno up there running things. She's an expert at covering up for the president and for the Democrats and a lot of things that they don't want to get out. So Oklahoma says, we're going to have our own grand jury and we're going to get to the bottom of this, what really happened. So now the word is coming out slowly in the media that there's a much bigger conspiracy involved. And of course now you're saying here that this woman had knowledge of this 2 weeks ahead of time and tipped off the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they let the thing go forward.
Right.
Right up to the point of killing almost 200 people.
When you kind of figure out that other city in Waco, Texas,
yeah,
and that Janet Reno was the one who ordered the federal troops in there.
The woman in red, Fred. We talk about that. Yeah. We talked about that many times in this program. We even had one of the street preachers from Waco that was in town during that standoff who was told by the FBI agents to either leave town or you're going to be killed with the rest of them. He left town and immigrated to La Crosse. We had him on the show and he told us his story, but there was much of a cover-up there. The woman in red, Janet Reno, ordered the final gassing of close to 100 people, men, women, and children. Yeah. And in that case, something like 26 to 35 infants were gassed to death by the FBI and the ATF,
yes,
along with 60, 70 adults. Okay, and of course they gassed them for 6-7 hours before they lit the place on fire. Now, that is still, a lot of that's been covered up, Fred, but that will be revealed. Things like that have a way of coming back to the surface, just like what a lot of people out there don't recall what happened in Ruby Ridge with, what's his name? What's that guy's name? Randy?
I forget his name.
Anyway, Ruby Ridge, a guy was a separatist. He said, I'm going to go up and live in the mountains. I don't like anybody. He just went off with his family, and there were about 5, 6 of them living up there, and he was surrounded by law enforcement, and one of the sharpshooters from the FBI took aim and blew his wife's head off while she was holding an infant baby in her arms, killed her instantly. And earlier in the standoff, the law enforcement murdered his 14-year-old son.
Yes.
One of the sheriffs or deputies, I think, was murdered, or one of the assistant sheriffs. So there was 3 people killed in that incident. And that was brought before the courts, and the defendant won. He was proven to be innocent. But the sharpshooter that murdered his wife,
he's on trial now.
He was let go by the federal government, which is separate from the state. So now the state said, I think it's Idaho, said, wait a minute here, we're not going to let this guy get off this easy. Yeah. So now they filed manslaughter charges against that agent that murdered that guy's wife.
Right.
So that's taken, I think, 5 or 6 years to come to finally come to get some justice. Okay, so we'll take our first call here, Fred, on the old cow report. And it's glad to see you back after all these years.
Glad to be here.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Yes.
This is Betty.
Yes.
I can't never reach you at home, you know.
Uh-huh.
But I want to ask you not to be interfering in my private life. I'd like to talk to Fred a minute.
Okay, well, Freddie's on the air right now.
It's on
Yeah.
the air.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're live on the air.
I know that.
Yes.
But I don't want you interfering in my life.
Okay, Fred,
Fred, your room is ready for you to come home. I'm waiting for you.
Okay.
And Chuck, you know, out of my business.
well, that's nice, Fred.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're getting some action.
Yes.
Okay, well, there you have it, Fred. Your wife wants you home.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, Fred. Here's some latest news from Florida, Fred. A woman in Tavares, Florida, is in trouble this week after she ordered her children to shoot their father. During an argument with her husband, the woman reportedly told her 6- and 8-year-old sons to open fire on Dad with their Red Ryder BB guns. The man was treated for 7 pellet wounds at a local hospital, as long as they didn't put somebody's eye out. So there you have it, Fred. And here's another quick one here. A 73-year-old Milwaukee woman has lost her suit against the local Catholic church after an electronic scoreboard fell on her during a bingo game in 1990. Mary Verdev was asking for $90,000 in damage, claiming that since the incident, she experienced spontaneous orgasms, sometimes in clusters. That happened in 1990, Fred.
Yeah.
And that was an actual lawsuit there for $90,000.
Yes.
And one more here. A couple in New Brunswick, Canada, are cleaning up after a large amount of what appeared to be human waste fell from the sky. The couple believes that the waste was dumped by a passing airplane, but air traffic control claims that no commercial flight was in the area at the time. So no telling where that came from. Just fell out of the air there, Freddie.
Yeah.
Okay, Fred, well, what do you got there now before we take another call?
This is another one, and this is the VFW magazine in August, and it says the Cold Wet War. And boy, it has been going on ever since World War II. And so far, one of our submarines was rammed by a Russian submarine, and it came to the service.
Now, this happened how long ago?
Well, I can't. I've been looking for the article. I haven't seen where it was.
All right.
But it's a good article in VFW magazine.
So they actually rammed each other. Anyone get hurt or anything?
Well, it forced our submarine to come to the surface.
Oh, all right. So I thought we were at peace now, Fred. I thought everything was.
Especially under Clinton, we're not at peace.
I thought everything was a love fest here between the United States and Russia. I mean, we give them quite a bit of foreign aid.
I know it.
We take money right out of the pockets of poor people in this country and shovel it by the bucket loads into Russia. We have poverty in this country, but we're willing to help everybody else, Fred. Okay, Freddie, we got some pictures here that of you when you were a young man, and we're going to see if Roy can get a close-up of them. And that guy in the middle there looks familiar, and the other guy right next to him. We'll see if Roy can get a close-up of that. Okay, there we are.
Yeah.
Now, who are those people there, Fred?
Well, that's the.
Who's that guy on the left there in the shorts?
I don't. Oh, that's Dr. Panagrosso.
Dr. Panagrosso.
He was a state commander from New Jersey in the Catholic War Veterans.
Okay, and then the guy right next to him is who?
He's the guy who was on television quite often.
He's on the radio too, wasn't he?
Yes,
He's still on the radio.
yes. And he brings out the news that you don't get elsewhere.
Well, what year is this photograph anyway?
1964.
Okay, that's 1964, and that's Paul Harvey, isn't it?
Yes,
Paul Harvey.
and that's the national commander there.
In the middle?
Yeah,
Guy in the middle is the national commander of the
Catholic War.
Catholic War Veterans. So this is 33 years ago. Now, who's that tall, skinny guy there with the dark suit on?
Me.
I'll tell you. You look a little different there, Freddie. Of course,
Yes.
that's 33 years ago.
Yes.
Then who's the guy standing next to you?
As this man from one of the state commanders,
Okay,
and I can't recall his name.
okay, so now that's that's the Catholic War Veterans, but that was, of course, the Catholic War Veterans been around since what, 1945?
Yeah.
So that's a young-looking Paul Harvey there. He's
Yes.
still on the air, still plugging away at it. And then we had one more here, Fred. Now, is this one about from the same period?
That was in 1950 something.
Can you get a close-up of that there, Roy? There he goes. So that's when?
1950. We had a book sale with books.
Still in your uniform there.
Yes.
You still have that uniform?
I don't know. It was in the closet.
Now, is that your Coast Guard uniform?
No, that's a CWB uniform in blue. That's a blue uniform.
Oh, you mean you had uniforms back then for that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then,
Here's the Queens County commander.
this is November 1962, Fred.
Yeah, I know.
Now, you were,
We had Know Your America Week, and that was celebrating the announcement of it.
okay, and that guy in the middle that's Walt Disney, right?
No,
Oh,
that's the state, the Queens County Borough President.
so in New York they have the 5 boroughs, and he's the
Yes.
president of Queens.
And that was the commander there, and this is myself,
Now,
chairman of the program.
okay, so you have quite a heritage there with the Catholic War Veterans, Fred.
I know.
Now you're still, you're still what are you, past commander or you're commander now?
Commander.
Commander of the local, or is that for the whole state, or?
No, in Eau Claire.
All right. Okay, so there you have it, Fred. So it kind of brings back memories when you see that.
Yes.
So what was
No.
Paul Harvey doing there?
He got a award, and he was a speaker.
Oh, good. Good deal. All right. Was he still a good speaker back then?
Yes. Give a good talk.
Well, most people recall him on the air. Let's see, he's got a saying there. I can't think of it right now. And now for the rest of the story.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Chuck. Hi, Fred.
Hello there.
It's always fun to watch the show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, you made a comment about Hudson Foods and their E. coli burgers a few minutes back,
Uh-huh.
and I'd like to comment on it. Just in case anybody missed it, there was a really funny article in the Saturday newspaper, or at least I thought it was sort of funny. Hudson Foods, the one in Rogers, Arkansas, was fined because they didn't allow their workers to take a voluntary bathroom break when they needed to. And some of the workers said that they had accidents while waiting to get a break to go to the bathroom. And I thought that was kind of funny that a different Hudson beef processing plant, the one in Nebraska, had bacterial contamination. And I thought it was also kind of funny that they said it was an unrelated matter, which of course I'm sure it is, but I just probably have an offbeat sense of humor.
Well, that happens.
Well, you kind of think about it, no telling what they sweep up at the end of the day and just throw in there and grind it up with the rest of the meat.
I just thought I'd make that little contribution to your show because I thought it was funny. It was in Saturday's paper on page 6D.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but I suppose some of that contamination just off their hands and stuff might have got right back into the food.
Well, some of them had accidents
Yeah,
at work.
because they weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. That must be a rough place to work.
Right. Well, yeah, but then there's E. coli in the meat.
Yep. Yeah, they're paying dearly for it now, though. When the hammer came down, it's probably, I imagine that company will probably go bankrupt, or they're going to have to do an awful lot of writing off. What is it, 20 million pounds or something?
I don't know. It isn't funny, really. And then you think about all those poor cattle died for nothing. And you, of course, have the cow report.
I know, we've done our best to try and save innocent cows all these years, and then something like that happens.
Thousands or hundreds of thousands of cattle ended up dying for nothing.
You're right.
Well, it's amazing. It certainly is amazing.
I want to thank you for calling in.
Oh,
Yep.
well, it's nice to have Fred back.
Yes,
you.
there's a lot of people have been wondering where in the heck's Fred's at, so we're all glad to see you back and in tip-top shape, Fred.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks a lot for calling in.
Oh, yeah. I like jewelry, but I don't know quite how you got it hanging there.
What's that now?
Somebody has to mention it. We couldn't allow you to go the whole hour with nobody mentioning it.
Yes.
Oh, well, I've had a little sinus drainage lately, so my doctor prescribed this here.
Oh, Lord, you were just waiting for somebody to ask, weren't you?
Some kind of a new invention that they got down there at the clinic there, so of course they wanted to try it out on me first to see if there's any mass appeal for something like this out in the market.
Yeah.
It seems to be working pretty well, though. You know, we had the earwax collector, and of course they're using those nationwide now, so this here is something new they're trying.
Yeah.
Of course, they always need a guinea pig to try things like that.
Yeah, they got one.
You know what I thought at first when I saw it? I thought you were putting our earring on and you moved your head to the side just as you attached it.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we did, Fred.
Yeah. You did all right.
All right, well, it's glad to see you laughing again. Thanks for calling in, caller. Well, Fred, here on a more serious note, do you know that an estimated 500 Christians will die today for their faith?
Yeah.
And you talk to Christians in this country, and they talk about how rough they've got it, and how somebody snubbed them in the workplace or made an offhand remark about their Christianity. There's 500 people a day that are being martyred for their faith. I mean, they're losing their lives.
And that's in China.
Well, it's in China, it's in the Sudan, in parts of Africa where the Muslims control things. Cuba, North Korea, parts of the Muslim countries.
South Africa?
Yeah, well, not so
Congo?
not so much South Africa, but I know the Sudan. They're in over 40 nations around the world. Christians continue to suffer for their faith, beating, and being imprisoned, or even killed.
Yes.
And there's a website that you can go to check out what's going on. The Voice of the Martyrs. And it's www.persecution.com, and you can check that out and see what's happening out there in the world. Okay, Freddie, what do you got there?
I got one here from the Wanderers, which is published in St. Paul, a Catholic paper. Victims' family sues. The family of 27-year-old Sharon Hampton, who died after a notorious California abortionist, Bruce Steer, performed a late-term abortion on her before Christmas, has been filed in a wrongful death against Steer. The Moreno Valley Abortuary, where it was done, and other doctors and staff.
Now, what happened?
Well, she died.
From a legal abortion?
Yeah. It's happening out there, and particularly in California, where they have so many of them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Freddie, that's why people have been against that abortion business for over 20 years, some people 25 years. And of course this winter again there'll be more marches in Washington, Right to Life marches, and there's millions and millions of people involved in that movement to stop the slaughter of 1.5 million babies every year. And just think of all the Einsteins and the John F. Kennedys and the Abraham Lincolns and the Jonas Salks and all the other people that have been murdered through this Holocaust that we call abortion. It's been going on in this country, Fred, and just for that reason alone, that gives God enough ammunition to just wipe this country off the face of the earth, if for no other reason.
Yes.
I think it's just because of the prayers of the Christians that we haven't been wiped out already for some of the things that we've done in this country. But I'd say probably 30, 40 million babies have been eliminated in the last 15, 20 years.
Yes.
Okay, Freddie. Again, we have some other information here that Americans overwhelmingly oppose a needle exchange program. They say that the government should promote drug abstinence and rehab programs instead of just handing out needles on street corners. A poll released today by the Family Research Council reveals most Americans, 62%, oppose needle exchange programs, and 60% favor drug abstinence and drug rehabilitation programs as a more effective way to stop the spread of AIDS and HIV. 56% believe that federally funded exchanges represent an official endorsement of illegal drug use, encourage more teenage use of illegal drugs, and could lead to outright illicit drug legalization. The polling company, a national polling firm, conducted the survey of 1,000 registered voters and found that 60% of Americans want their members of Congress to stop free needle exchange programs and focus on drug rehabilitation. President Gary Bauer of the FRC said Wednesday that the needle exchange programs are nothing but a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. The only way to stop the spread of AIDS and HIV among intravenous drug users is to step up the war on drugs. Bauer was joined by Family Research Council Senior Policy Advisor Robert L. McGinnis, who provided detailed analysis of the poll results. Congress and the Clinton administration would make a radical mistake to flirt with the idea of needle exchange programs as sound and effective policy. Bauer continued, some ill-advised, reputable organizations have lined up in support of the needle exchange program, but Americans aren't so quick to jump on the bandwagon, especially when a program might be proposed for their own neighborhood. Some people now that go out in their front yards the next day after the activities of the night before will go out and find used condoms, used needles laying in their front yards. Little kids will pick that stuff up and play with it. A pinprick of somebody's contaminated with AIDS. And there you have it, Fred. Some little child picks up the HIV virus. Yes. Needle exchange programs won't stop a desperate drug addict to do anything to fulfill his craving. The needle exchange programs will scar urban areas. Okay, Fred, what do you got there?
Also from the Wanderer, Catholic paper from St. Paul, and this is this week's issue. During the week, private investigator Tony Lenneser testified that a friend of Bill Clinton had approached him to meet with the Cheyenne Arapaho tribe. As it turned out, his goal was to dig up dirt on Senator Don Nichols, Republican of Oklahoma, who happens to be a member of the committee looking into campaign abuses.
The Arapaho Indians are involved in it now?
Yeah, and they made a big contribution there, $107,000, $107,000 out of their welfare as a contribution to the Democratic Party in exchange for a promise to return tribal lands.
Okay, Fred, well, this can now is full, so all we have to do is put the label on it and cap it.
Yeah.
And we can send that down to the clinic for analysis to see how the new program's working. So we'll get that one down there. This one's full. We'll just have to hope that we don't have any sinus running until the program's over.
Right.
All right.
We haven't got a call there, huh?
Well, let's see here. We have a little bit of information here. Are taxpayers ready to subsidize heroin addicts, Fred? Are they?
No.
Well, let's see here. Donna Shalala is feeling the heat. The American Medical Association, the National Institutes of Health, the U.S. Conference on Mayors, and others are strongly urging her to lift the ban on federally funded needle exchange programs. Last month, the Washington Post said that the study also, after study shows that the exchanges do not promote greater use of illegal drugs. On July 8th, the Los Angeles Times reported that several major studies have shown that the programs that give addicts clean needles in exchange for used ones decrease the HIV infection in injected drug users by 30%. And Representative Elijah Cummings told USA Today that the needle exchange programs have cut the spread of the virus while not increasing drug use. But is this the whole truth? Are needle exchange programs stopping the spread of AIDS? In 1986, Switzerland began implementing a needle exchange program. That's over in Switzerland, friend. Chaos resulted. Syringes were made available in every pharmacy and then in public vending machines. Zurich Platzpick Park was opened as a safe haven for Zurich's own drug addicts, and needles were distributed freely. The city was soon flooded with foreign addicts, and the number of exchanged needles skyrocketed to 12,000 a day. That's 12,000 people injected heroin into their arms and threw away those 12,000 needles, so they needed 12,000 more. In 1992, the city closed the distribution center, and thousands of addicts relocated to a nearby abandoned railway station called Letton. There, it evolved into a war zone among gangs dealing drugs, while the number of exchanged needles skyrocketed to 15,000 a day from 12,000. By February of 1995, Letton was closed. Addicts were moved to government-sponsored centers and shooting galleries. Now, shooting galleries where you lay there all day and inject yourself with your heroin and cocaine and what have you. And there's hundreds of shooting galleries in this country, Fred. The result, Switzerland now claims the highest number of heroin addicts and the second highest HIV infection rate in Europe. It also experiences Europe's highest heroin...
Small country.
Yep, it also experiences Europe's highest heroin drug overdose death rate each year. Now the United States may be on the verge of federally funding the needle exchange program, but the Family Research Council will fight to keep this from happening. On August 20th, FRC will release an unprecedented national poll declaring what the American people really think about needle exchanges. Anti-drug leaders will join FRC President Gary Bauer and Robert McGinnis to brief the press on this urgent matter. And of course, I just read briefly what the results of that poll were, Fred, that 60% of the people don't want to have any needle exchange programs.
Right.
They already got enough heroin addicts and heroin overdoses going on in this country. So you see what happens when you open it up wide open in a little country like Switzerland.
Yes.
All right there, Freddie. What's this here you got here, Citizens for a Sound Economy?
That's
Is
a
there anything in there?
good organization, and a number of articles in there are worth reading.
All right. Okay. Okay, well, what do you got there, Freddie?
Oh, I got whole language holes here, and this is promoted by people like Professor Dewey, or Why Johnny Can't Read, and the book created a sensation in '55 when a nation of puzzled parents why their children have difficulty time learning to read. And the parents learned out and to read the same school books without any great trouble. And this is from the New American Magazine.
Yep. Well, Fred, remember when Sam was it Blumenthal or Blumenfeld?
Blumenthal.
Came to Eau Claire, and he's wrote several books on why Johnny can't read, and telling of more easier ways for people to learn how to read, and how the public school systems are kind of locking in obsolescence by using the old methods of teaching that don't work. It's kind of like, we were just talking about the needle exchange programs, Fred. It's kind of like some of these drug rehabilitation centers that are funded with federal, state, and local governmental money, and they have a 2 to 3% success rate, but they keep getting the grants and the taxpayers' dollars year after year, even though they're utterly and hopelessly failures in the area of getting people off drugs, Fred. A 2 to 3% success rate is nothing to brag about, but the government entities keep pumping money into those losing causes. All right, Fred, here's some unfortunate news. Panama is slipping into China's eager grip.
Yeah, they got control of one port already and are working on controlling the other one.
Well, this is getting serious, Fred. This is right down south of us here in the Panama Canal Zone area. With virtually no serious debate, Congress has committed $6 billion to pay for U.S. intervention in Bosnia where no perceptible U.S. vital interest is at risk. Closer to home, Congress has thus far proven unwilling to spend a fraction of that amount, less than $100 million per year, to maintain an essential U.S. military presence at the Isthmus at Panama, and to block eventual control of the Isthmus by interests allied with Communist China. At the beginning of 1997, there were 6,800 U.S. military personnel in Panama. By the end of this year, that number will have been reduced to 4,400. Under terms of the Jimmy Carter Trujillo's Panama Canal Treaty, which expires on December 31st, 1999, the United States is not obliged to leave Panama until midnight as the year 2000 begins. Nonetheless, in a penny-wise, pound-foolish manner, we have been prematurely reverting facilities and resources years before the treaty requires. Moreover, the 1978 treaty provides a procedure whereby a continuing U.S. presence well into this next century can be secured. But I guess China is making a move, Fred, and they're already moving in there and leasing up parts of the canal and getting control of one end of it. Is that the way you read it?
Yes.
Red China's influence in Panama is growing in many ways. Recently, the Bank of China extended a 15-year, $120 million loan to Panama at 3% interest to finance the government's investment program and to purchase and sell assets. It's a pretty nice loan there for that 3% interest.
Mm.
So anyway, China is on the move, and of course, American consumers and taxpayers are footing the bill for a lot of what's going on and a lot of where China is getting their renewed power in the world, Fred. The sleeping dragon is woken up, Fred.
Yes.
And one of these days we're going to have to deal with China in a more serious way, unfortunately, and it's probably going to be as part of a world war. China is buying some of the most sophisticated armaments and
Yes.
rocketry and computer technology in the world that's available right now, Fred, and they're
I know.
at a dangerous clip there.
I think it's something we have to be concerned about.
We certainly do. What do you got there, Fred?
In Focus on the Family with Dr. Charles, James, I can't even think of his name now. He's got an article here and a photo by Bob Welch of a family with 22 children. And it shows when she was the only one who said yes to adopting a 15-year-old mentally retarded boy from Brazil.
So there's 22 adopted kids in this family?
No, there's at least 2 of them are their own.
Huh.
No, 12 children of their own.
So they're
10 of them are other.
so they're helping out wherever they can by adopting people that are adopting children that
Right.
nobody else wants?
That's one of the things.
Well, that's a good deal, Fred. Meet the van.
They're from 23 to 8 months.
The Van Winger dens, a remarkable family with a remarkable number of children. Well, that's good, Fred. Okay, Fred, does the American dream of a better life seem like an impossible dream? Well, wait a minute here. Police cadet hopeful Robert Jordan filed a discrimination suit against the city of New London, Connecticut, after officials turned down his application to become a policeman. The city said Jordan scored too high on its IQ test to be a cop. Isn't that something there?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And a couple in New Brunswick, let's see, romance, wine, candle, there, wait a minute. Think you're having a bad hair day? Think again. When Charles Gibson of Lakeland, Florida, backed out of a $5 haircut last week, his barber bit off his right thumb.
Oh, boy.
He just literally chewed it off, said Gibson. I looked into his eyes. He didn't look normal. Huh. Now, when did you have to go to the barber again, Fred? You have to...
I should go there now.
Well, maybe we can get you down there. Now, down over there where you're at, do they have a barber in there in residence?
Yeah,
or?
they do have one, get a haircut for $5, but right now I don't have the $5.
Well, we'll see what we can do there. Okay. And then we had this thing here, Freddie. E.C. Stewart Jr. may never get out of jail after the Levelland, Texas District Attorney recommended last week that his bail be set at $1 zillion. The judge agreed. A spokesman at the Hockley County Jail said he didn't think Stewart had a lawyer yet. So $1 zillion bail, Fred, that's a lot. I mean, how many billions is that?
I don't know.
I wonder what the guy did to have $1 zillion bail. And then this one, here's one, Fred. Several weeks after returning from Peru, a San Francisco woman was understandably alarmed to find worms crawling out through holes in her skin. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, the unidentified woman was infected with larvae from the botfly, which matured inside her body and emerged through sores on her legs. She didn't know what the sores were until she saw a creature starting to crawl out. So sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, Fred.
Yeah.
All right, Fred, I was going to see here if we have another photograph. Now, here's one photograph here recently, Fred, of you holding the flag, and there's a... Roy's going to get a close-up of that. And there's one of your old buddies there that we see down here at Public Access from time to time. There's Fred. Now this says on the back, 1989, Eau Claire Parade. Now was that, which parade was that, Fred?
Probably, that was the Memorial Day parade.
All right, there's Fred proudly holding the flag, and of course that's Norbert Wilson there with you. Now he's a veteran too, isn't he?
Yes.
All right. And of course this flag we have behind us here, Fred, now where did that come from?
The veterans organizations gave it to the cable TV here.
I think there's a plaque on there somewhere, isn't there?
It was.
Yep, it says by Eau Claire County Allied Veterans Council, presented to Cable Access Channel 11
Yes.
by the Eau Claire County Allied Veterans Council.
Yes.
Well, that was pretty nice of him, Fred. I know when we have these programs down at the old library downtown there, we had a hard time finding the flag. Every time we'd go look for it, it'd be off hidden somewhere. So you took the initiative there and donated an official flag to Public Access Channel 11, and it's been in use ever since. And that was pretty nice of you, Fred, there to get that done. Now, so what's the agenda now, Fred? What's your timeline there for working your way out of where you're at and getting back into the swing of things? And
I expect we'll have a hearing next week.
how many organizations are you still involved with that you've had to kind of put on hold here for the last few weeks?
Well, with the Legion, the VFW, the Knights of Columbus, I'm not able to, haven't been able to attend only one meeting of the Morality and Media, which I was a board member.
Catholic War Veterans, you're involved with them?
Yes.
And the American Family Association?
Yes.
Kept active with them. And I think you've been involved with the Christian Coalition from time to time. And
No, I haven't been lately, unfortunately.
but you start naming them up, and there's a lot of things you're involved with. Of course, you still have your church activities too. I suppose you've been missed at church. You're an usher there, aren't you?
Yes.
So you were an usher at church for many years. So there's a lot of different organizations where we've been missing you, Fred. So we're glad to see you're coming back around and getting back in action. But we all knew here on the Old Cow Report that it would be pretty hard to keep old Fred down.
Yes.
All right. Okay, Fred, we'll read one more and then we'll take another call. This person's been waiting on the line there for several minutes. Mars is ours. 3 Yemenese men have filed a lawsuit against NASA for landing on Mars. According to the El Thawri newspaper, the men claim the red planet belongs to them. We inherited the planet from our ancestors 3,000 years ago, and they won it in a poker game. So there you have it. So Yemen owns Mars. So they're suing, they're going to be suing NASA in the United States to get back Mars. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, what is this about?
About what?
What is this about? Oh,
This here is the Old Cow Report. We've been on for 20, 25 years. Where you been?
where have I been? In reality?
All right, is that somewhere outside of the city limits of Madison?
No, I'm in Eau Claire.
Oh, okay, all right. Just checking there.
I was like flipping through the channels and I saw you guys on.
Yeah, we've been inside of the television set here for many years now. We haven't figured out a way how to get out. We've been trapped in here.
Yeah.
And so we're always glad to hear from the outside world. So how are things going out there?
Oh, they're okay.
Well, we're glad to hear it.
What's on your head?
a cat jumped off the roof on the way into the building here. Fred hit it over the head with a club, and it's just kind of laying there half asleep. We're hoping it won't wake up till after the show's over. Well, we got in a fight there one day, and Fred took a swing at me, and it's never been the same since.
Yeah.
All right there. So what's your question, or do you have a question or any deeper meaning of life that we can answer for you? Anything that's on your mind? You sound like you're a young person. And
No, I'm not young.
you're not?
No,
Well, what do you consider young?
I'm 23.
Oh, okay. So are you going to school here in town?
What?
Do you go to college?
Yeah.
All right, well, we have many, many thousands of viewers out at the university, and they get together and have pizza parties. And
What's wrong with your head right now?
well, I had an operation here recently. And I've sometimes I just feel like I'm coming apart at the seams.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh my God! Sorry. I'm trying to think of a question. You've got two different eyeballs now. They're the same, actually.
Yes, sometimes that happens. Okay, well, if there's no further questions, we'll get back to the show. Well, thank you for calling in there. Okay, Fred, we have something here. Jeffrey Thomas walked into a Signet Bank in Baltimore and handed a teller a note demanding money. So far, so good. But when police arrived, bank employees pointed to a man counting cash near a teller station down at the end of the bar down there at the bank. It was Jeffrey Thomas adding up the take. So that's kind of intelligent, isn't it?
Yes.
Rob a bank and then stand down at the end and count your money. Okay, in Clearwater, Florida, Fred, a 70-year-old man was killed while sunbathing in a lounge chair at the beach when a bulldozer ran over him. I don't know what happened there. Just laying in his lawn chair and a bulldozer come driving by and flattened him flatter than a pancake. And then finally, before we take this call here, Fred, a company picnic tug-of-war game turned ugly this week when one of the contestants had his hand ripped off. Stanley Harris was the anchor man on a team of 25 people, Fred, and had wrapped the rope around his wrist for a better grip. Of course, when they got into the tug-of-war, the team on the other side did a quick jerk and just ripped his hand right off. So there you have it, Fred.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, I just gotta tell you, man, I love your show, man.
Well, thank you very much.
I was just sitting around here one night and I was just blasting off my ass, and I was flipping through the channels. I found your show. I thought it would be cool.
Well, yes, we've been trapped here on this channel for many, many years now, and it's always good to hear from the outside world.
I love your hat. I want one. Where'd you get it?
Well, as I said earlier, we were walking in the building here, and this cat jumped off the roof, landed on my head. Fred picked up his cane and clubbed it a couple times, and it's been kind of asleep there ever since.
Hey, we got a cat around here, but black. It could be like cool for that.
We might be able to get that and put it on Fred's hat there. If you want to put it in the mail and send it down to public access, we'll see what we can do with it. Well, thanks for calling in there. Well, Freddie boy, another hour is quickly coming to a close, and of course this has been the old Cow Report, and I've been your host, Chuck Lee, along with Fred the True Staffer, and Roy Rogers Hoff, and all the gang here. And of course, as we said earlier, we've been trapped here now for many, many years. So hopefully now you'll bid on the auction coming up there in the 1st and 2nd of November, and you'll be able to get your one and only original Cow Report T-shirt with an autograph of Fred and Chuck right on the back of it there, and on the front it's a collector's item, Luger for President, and there you have it, Luger for President. So that'll be something that you can talk about for many, many years.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller. You're the last call of the evening.
You guys are cool. You like rock this world.
Well, thanks a lot there.
Like, I had a cat like that once, but I kicked its ass.
Well, there you have it, Fred. All right, well, thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you right here again next time on the Old Cow Report. Adios, amigos and
Good
amigas.
evening. Good evening.
We'll see you, Freddie. See
Yes.
you next time.
Right on.
Okay. And of course, Fred will be giving his tours down here from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.